Well, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Agency, the Planning Commission meeting. My name is Todd Lehman. I serve as vice chair, but I will be serving as chair today. And so I'm going to go over a few rules and then we'll step into our agenda. Hopefully you have a copy of the agenda. The Planning Commissioners get a packet like this about last week. And so we've had opportunities to look at it. So some of the cases may go quickly. So make sure you're paying attention when I read a case. For those cases that have a staff recommendation to approve or approve with conditions, I'll ask for opposition relative to that, or ask the applicant maybe if they have any issues with the conditions. So if you want to speak or in opposition to a case, when I say the case number, I'll ask for opposition if you'll raise your hand, because what we do want to hear from you. And so our process is that if we have opposition or it's to deny, well, let me jump back. I'm going to try to follow my notes here. So those may go quickly because the Planning Commission has had a chance to review. So again, a staff recommendation to approve without opposition, we may move straight through a motion and a roll call. Staff recommendations to deny, we will hear from staff to take us through the case. And then I'll ask for the applicant and if there's any opposition. And our process is once we have a staff presentation, the applicant will have 7 minutes. And that's an opportunity for them to come to the microphone and address the Planning Commission and talk about the project. I'll ask that the opposition, so if there's a couple of people or quite a few individuals that want to speak in opposition, when I ask you if there's any opposition, you raise your hand. I'll get you to go over maybe to this wall and start to line up, because once the applicant talks for 7 minutes, we'll allow opposition to speak for about 9 minutes, and we'll keep tight on that time. So if there's a number of you that want to speak and there's someone at the microphone, be aware if there's a number of people behind you, since there is only 9 minutes allotted. And the other important thing to know is if the first person is giving us some really valid reasons, of why they're in opposition, be paying attention to that, because you may not want to come up and say the exact same thing from a time's sake. You may have some other things, and that'll help us focus on all of the comments relative to opposition. And so opposition, the applicant will have 7 minutes, opposition will have 9, and then the applicant does have 2 minutes to follow up. I do want to make it clear that the conversation today is between the dais and the person at the microphone and the person. So sometimes we get in a situation where we're asking audience and people. So make sure that you understand that the dialogue is between the dais and the person there at the microphone. One other thing, all of these, other than subdivision regulations, are recommendations. And so as we start moving into zoning agenda items, both new business and old business, this commission makes a recommendation. And so I think hopefully it's on a piece of paper, or we'll tell you the recommendation. If it's in the city of Chattanooga, the recommendation from this, whether it's a recommendation to approve or deny, will go on to city council. If it's in the county, then that recommendation will go on to county commission. And so I believe those dates or those meeting dates are highlighted. So be aware of that it will go on. Zoning cases will go on. Other, obviously, subdivision cases will not. So I'm going to go ahead and use that to jump right into our agenda. We're going to start with subdivision plats and variances. The first subdivision is SD 2023-0005. It's a preliminary plat for Shadow Cove, lots 1 through 57. It's located at 5985 Tower Road. It has a recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition? Okay. I have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion on that motion?
That's correct. It's 1 through 157. The one's missing on the agenda.
I'm sorry, 1 through 157. I don't think that poses probably doesn't change any opposition. Okay, so yes, Ms.
Also,
Council.
the case number is, I think, incorrect. It says SD 2022. Is that supposed to be SD 2023?
On the agenda, it's 2023. I think that's what I read, unless I
On the
misspoke.
staff recommendation. On the staff recommendation.
Yeah, it should be 2023.
Okay, I just want to make sure we aren't
So-
creating a
so-
clerical error there.
Yeah. Case 2020 subdivision SD 2023-0005 preliminary plat lots 1 through 157. I have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. No discussion. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. If you'd let the record show that Mr. Matthews recused himself. Second item on the subdivision and plats, SD 2023-0006 preliminary plat, Damascus subdivision lots 1 through 7, located at 1811 Terry Lynn Drive, has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition? Okay. A motion to approve, and a second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Motion carries. Next item is a variance SD 2023-0007. It's a variance from section 40114 from the Chattanooga subdivision regulations for street connectivity. Peck and Paul subdivisions, lots 1 through 15, 4541 Peck and Paul Drive has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition? Have a motion to approve has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay. If you would, Mr. Byrd has recused himself. Item number 4, our last subdivision plat is preliminary plat SD 2023-0007. Is that the right?
It's the same.
It's the same.
Same
Okay, so it's
plat.
the
We have a
plat
variance
for the variance. So it is the same case number?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is the preliminary plat, Peck and Paul subdivision lots 1 through 15. No opposition. Motion to approve it has been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Bird's recused himself. Thank you. Okay, moving on to old business. The first old business is case 2022-0262 Thorn. It's located at 7707 Lee Highway, City of Chattanooga, rezoned from C2 Convenience Commercial Zone to UGC. Has a staff recommendation to defer for 30 days. Anybody, any opposition? Is the applicant present? Okay. Is there any opposition? Okay. Do you want to take us through that, Mr. Schultz?
You want the whole case or?
So
The next
there are
three cases basically the same.
Well, I mean, unless there's a motion to defer. So you're saying all 3 of these, which were old business from that, I think were deferred 60 days.
Correct. Well, what happened? We may remember last month that Planning Commission recommended to amend the C2 zone to allow unlimited density in the C2 zone because the C2 has a maximum density requirement. These are conversions of hotels that have X number of hotel rooms. When you look at the density, the number of hotels existing exceed the density allowed in C2. Therefore, they need to rezone to a UGC that has unlimited density. So staff proposed a zoning text amendment last month. That's not been acted on by the city council yet. I believe, my understanding, Dan Craig Brown is going to be acted on in 2 weeks. Not sure what that action will be. Could change, could see these cases again. So that's why staff's recommended defer all 3 cases to see what happens at city council on that proposed text amendment. If adopted as drafted, the applicant would not need to rezone these 3 properties.
Is there a motion from the? Okay. I have a motion to defer for 30 days. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. These are all related, so we'll entertain a motion. Or so next is case 2023-0263. Have a motion to defer for 30 days. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It has been properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Case 20. Yes, we're taking action on these to defer these for 30 days. So yes, sir. Understood. Case 2022-0264, 3655 Cummings Highway. Staff recommendation to defer for 30 days. Do I have a motion? Okay, I have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll move to our new business.
Mr. Chairman, I think
Yes, sir.
Chris said that's going to be in 1 week. Is that right? When is it going to be back?
Okay, that's good information, I think, for some of the individuals in the audience. There is a vote at City Council next week, Tuesday evening. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, on the ordinance change. Gotcha. Yep. So these cases will be deferred for 30 days. They will be back in front of this body in 30 days. And I think they'll be back because we just deferred them for 30 days.
They'll be back in front of you guys to have to actually accept the withdrawal request.
Yes, ma'am. If you've got any relative, these are all in the city of Chattanooga. So Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, City Council, they'll talk about changes. They're not specific to these projects, but they'll talk about an ordinance change, which is
1000 Lindsay Street. That's at 6 p.m.
okay. Moving on to new business. First case is 2023-0011. It's located at 5103 Central Avenue. It's in the city of Chattanooga. It's rezoned from R2 residential zone to UGC urban general commercial zone. Has a staff recommendation to deny. Is the applicant present? Okay. Is there any opposition that would also like to speak? Okay, great. Go ahead, Mr. Schultz. We'll have staff take us through it, and then Mr. Jones, if you want to head on up.
Sure.
Go ahead, Brian.
And before I forget, you do have in front of you a Google sheet that has opposition that RPA received in terms of emails on 3 of the cases. This is case 2023-11. This request is to rezone from R2 residential zone to UGC urban general commercial. Proposed use is multifamily. This property is about 0.41 acres in size. Proposed number of units is 48. That's a density of 117 dwelling units per acre. Looking at the zoning map, you can see there's no commercial zoning near this property. To the north is R3. To the south and west of this property is R2. And to the east across Central Avenue is manufacturing zoning. There's been no zoning history on this particular piece of property. However, to the north, immediately abutting this, you do see R3. That property was rezoned in 2017 from M1 to R3. It did have some conditions on that property related to a transportation impact study, no parking between the building and public streets, talks about height restrictions. So that does have some conditions on the property, the R3 to the north. Looking at current land use, this property is currently vacant. To the north, which is the R3, that's under construction of multifamily. To the west of this property, along West 51st Street, is single-family detached dwellings. To the south of this site, along Arlington Terrace, is single-family detached dwellings. And to the east, across Central Avenue, is a vacant industrial land and a railroad right-of-way. Here's a view of the site. Central Avenue is on the left-hand side. This is north of the site, those apartments that are being constructed. This is south of the site, which again is single-family detached dwellings. This is east of the site across Central Avenue, which is the former vacant industrial property. And this is west of the site along 51st Street. You can see the site on the left-hand side there, abutting the single-family detached dwellings. This property is in the Alton Park Land Use Plan, which is adopted in 2000, which recommends single-family residential. Some of the plan goals are introducing infill housing with new construction. They encourage new single-family home ownership. Here's one of the site plans that was submitted with the application, showing an entrance off West 51st, typical renderings of what the buildings could look like. This request is not compatible with the adopted land use plan, would not be compatible with adjacent land uses to the west, south of the site. UGC would set a precedent for future requests to introduce non-residential zone on the block of West 51st Street. Staff did feel there was some type of use that could happen here, like an RTZ zone, some townhomes. However, 117 dwelling unit acre, 4-story building with 48 parking spaces is too intense at this location. This is 2 lots of record, so the site could be used as 2 single family dwellings with ADUs, which would be more appropriate at this location. So staff recommended deny based on those conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Are there any questions for staff?
I would just say that I think it's 36 total units. I think at one point you might say 48, but it's 48 parking spaces, 36.
And if I know I saw some opposition, if y'all would like to speak, if y'all want to go ahead and line up on this wall over here, the applicant will speak first, and then y'all will have an opportunity to speak. Yes, sir. Name and address.
It is 48. I mean, it's on, if you look on the front of the report, it says 36 and the reasons for. Anyways.
Go ahead. Can you make sure that hit that in the red light? There you go. You got it.
Is that better?
Oh, great.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Jones with Stone Creek Consulting. Address is 1112 Wilmoth Road, Dunlap, Tennessee. So this site, we've been meeting with the neighbors for the past couple. Well, I've met with the neighbors twice, and with the South Chattanooga Neighborhood Association, to kind of look at this site in a little bit of greater context. Across the street is that large industrial park, which has lately, from my understanding, it's a super fun site that's been trying to get cleaned up. So this site is going to be getting a lot of attention in the coming years. And also, as the rest of this, Alton Park is getting a lot of attention, especially, it's been clearly evident with the apartment complex that was approved back in 2017, which is under construction now, and with a lot of the developments in the South Broad area. So, when meeting with the neighbors in the association, there is a need and a want for housing. Depending on who you talk to in the neighborhood, some want just single family for purchase homes. Some want rental properties that can bring maybe a younger generation back into the community. I think it was Miss Marie at the last association meeting. She kind of started out with a comment saying, I've got great aunts and great nieces or great nieces that when they graduate high school and they grow up, they leave because they don't want to stay in this community. She goes, I want a place for them to be able to come and feel like it's a place for them. Maybe something a little newer, a little revived, and something they can afford as well. So when we had our first meeting, it was really more of that very first picture that Brian showed up on the screen. And after hearing some of the comments from the community, they wanted to see how this was going to fit the context of the site. So we produced the second rendering for the second meeting. And what we're looking at with this site now, because of the grade change across the site, we're able to basically have garage parking that's subterranean, underground. So by the time you work your way up into the neighborhood, it's going to look like a 3-story building because the parking is going to be underground. One of the concerns that we heard at the meetings was having only one parking space per bedroom. Because most of these are going to be 1-bedroom units. We may have a couple of 2-bedroom units, but the reality of the fact is, even if you have one space per unit, you're still going to need some extra parking spaces. So with this kind of revised plan, we do have a total of 45 parking spaces, and what we communicated to the neighborhood is that we'll probably be in that 34 to 42 unit count range. That way, this will leave additional parking spaces, whether it's for guests or for some of the units to have 2 parking spaces. When you get into the cost of units, it's just interesting. At first, we were maybe being a little bit more sensitive to cost and looking at providing maybe a little bit lower price point for these units, but we kind of got a little bit of a maybe backlash, saying we don't want lower rents, we want higher rents. So we've kind of gone back and to have higher rents, we can look at maybe this this model where we can have higher quality units that we're targeting the young professionals or even the retirees that want to move back into this community and don't want to have to deal with maintaining their yards. Some of the discussions after our last neighborhood meeting, just through email with the president of the association, just concerns with traffic as you come down central from out of Georgia into this community. There is a bit of a hill, and it can impede the view a little bit. But as with any development and as this area develops, traffic is going to slow down. I was at a corridor meeting a couple months ago, and someone made the comment, maybe in jest, but with more density, you're going to slow your traffic down. That you can take that for what it's worth. But with the traffic, we can work with the transportation department and looking and finding ways to slow and calm down traffic on Central Avenue. We can't control the whole corridor, but with the developments, we can look at traffic calming devices to help slow down traffic in the area. I think I'm going to leave it at that and let the neighbors speak, and then I'll just respond to what they have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, so none. Ma'am, if you want to start, and each of you, as you come up and once you finish, I'm going to try to watch the 9 minutes, so please be aware of that with the other individuals that would like to speak. But name and address, and then go ahead.
My name is Conda Jones. I live at 101 Arlington Terrace, which is adjacent to the lot where they're wanting to build. That lot originally had one home on it. That amount of apartments, and they're saying that they want to do, I think, underground parking. I don't know how that's going to work with the amount of traffic that's already coming through that area and the speed at which people come through that area. I couldn't tell you how many times we've had cars to wreck in my front yard because they come over each hill so fast that you can't see. So I just think it would just be too congested to have that many units put there.
Thank you.
My name is Sonia Brewer. I am a resident at 8 West 51st Street, right next to where these apartments are supposed to be built. It is a bad idea for the neighborhood, for the street that I live on, that is a resident area, to have a stackable apartment with an underground parking is not appropriate for this area. And secondly, I would not want those apartments to be sitting on top of me. The way it's very small. It's a very small lot to be putting something like that, and I would be very uncomfortable with that, so I object.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Deborah Johnson. I'm a resident of 101 Arlington Terrace, and I oppose this planning for this building altogether. And first of all, it's a safety issue. He already had mentioned that also, that there is an incline coming over the hill on Central Avenue and also going over Central Avenue. When you turn out of Arlington Terrace onto Central Avenue, you have to really pull out quick because the cars coming down Central, they be right on you. So that is a safety issue for our neighborhood. Also, I would like to know, has there been any type of environmental survey or study concerning the soil? I was raised in that house, in that neighborhood, and I can tell you, in the past, it was a retaining wall that sort of collapsed over the years, and the soil was actually spilling over into the sidewalk. So I just have a question about, is the soil, the suitability, and also the sustainability to hold 3 to 4 story building. I have an issue with that as well too. And also on that building, on that lot, there's also a traffic issue as there too, because there's an incline, and that can pose a traffic accident as well also. In the past, on that same property, because it is located on a hill, there's like a drainage that water just stands still on that area for days at a time. It looked to be maybe a pooling from maybe a drainage system or a sewage system, but that was a long-term problem as well in that particular area. Also, we have brought up the condition of congestion and crowdedness. And also they on that plan was talking about a dumpster. And when summer months, everybody's aware of dumpster. They do carry an odor. It promotes pests, and it also promotes rodent in the area. And also it's been reported that moles have also inhabited the area, tunneling through that soil in that neighborhood, also in the property behind us. So these are just some of the issues why I oppose the building of the structure right behind the home that I have lived in on Arlington Terrace.
Mr. Chairman, we got
Thank you,
about
ma'am.
4.5 minutes left.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Vanessa A. Jackson. I live on West 51st Street. I've lived there since I was probably 4 or 5 years old, about 50 years. My parents are also homeowners on the street. I speak to echo all the sentiment that's already been expressed here today. One of the main concerns for our community is that we want to see more single-family development. We want to see more townhomes. We do want to see development in our community, but we want to see good development that wants to work cooperatively with the community itself. We are also concerned about the parking issue. There's been, and I will back up and say that there's been some inconsistencies in the number of units. We were told from the beginning it was a 48 unit. I see today there's been maybe some changes to that, but that's sort of also part of our concern. We want consistency in what is going to be proposed to be put there so that we can react appropriately. Back to the parking situation, even if there is going to be now 36 units for parking proposed, everybody knows that individuals do have company. Most apartment units will have at least 2 cars there. And the 51st Street is a dead-end street, and we fear that there will be parking on our street if this development is allowed, as well as the same being the case on Arlington Terrace. Also, I'm concerned about the amount of, breadth of the scope that a UGC zone, commercial zone, can have for our community. It may be able to open up the types of commerce that's not really good and consistent with the integrity of our community. I'll let other of my neighbors speak, but I thank you for giving me time today.
Thank you.
My name is Marjorie Neville, and I live at 32 West 51st Street, and I will be very brief. I agree with all what my neighbors have just said. We do live on a dead-end street, and our street is not really paved. We have no curbs or anything, so there's no way that extra parking can park on our street. It's a dead-end street. Currently, the the garbage trucks, they have to back up our hill. We have to have our street clear because large trucks cannot turn. We don't have a turnaround like Arlington Terrace. We have to go up there and trucks have to maneuver. So there's no way there can be parking on 51st Street. We do not have police that patrol our neighborhood currently now because it's basically a quiet neighborhood. So I have a fear that when we get more people, unless we call the police, they don't even come out and patrol, come up 51st Street. It's a dead-end street. They figure, why not? That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
My name is Gertha Lee. I'm with the South Chattanooga Community Association. And amongst the other things that have been said, zoning this area for UGC is really not in line with the complexion of the community itself. And then it's on a single family area, as you also stated, 0.41 acres, which is a very small lot. And it's going to impact the houses right adjacent to it, the houses behind it, And then they're proposing a number of things that even the digging down in could affect foundations of surrounding houses and what have you. Emergency vehicles, it's a dead end street. Fire trucks and emergency vehicles trying to come in and out could have a problem because it being a dead end street, they would have to back out, or some major provisions would need to be made in that regard. And you're talking about 48 units. We have Mountain Pass that they don't know the traffic impact of Mountain Pass right now because it hasn't been completed yet. So at the Hill, there have been 2 wrecks with deaths because of that entrance. Where that entrance is, it's a hill there on Central Avenue, which is a blind hill. And it really doesn't matter how fast you go, it's a blind hill. And there have already been 2 accidents resulting in death. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're right at time, but come on, sir, if you would.
My name is Gil Swaps. I stay on 51st Street. They
Yes,
done said it all.
Thank
They
you.
said it
I
all.
appreciate you being here. Thank you, sir. All right, any comments, any questions? Councilwoman Hill.
Brian, could you tell us the density of the multifamily that's being built across the street, please?
Let me get that number. It's 264 units on the site plan that was shown back during the rezoning. I'm not sure what that total number is, but as proposed during the rezoning, it was 264 units.
And what is that per acre?
Councilwoman Hill,
I don't actually have exact acres on that to give you an actual density count number. I'm looking to see if it's in here, but I don't see it.
I'm trying to.
I was
compare
doing
apples
some
to apples.
calculations in preparation for this meeting, and off the top of my head, it was 17 units per acre.
17 units. Per
That's
acre.
what I remember. Don't quote me on it, but
Okay.
that's what I remember calculated.
Wow, that's a lot different. Okay, thank you.
So if you want to, you've got about 2 minutes.
Sure.
Response.
So one of the things I've been communicating with Councilwoman Dotley is she's going to be meeting, or actually her and myself will be meeting again with the neighborhood association next week. And some of the things that we're going to try to finalize is number of units that could be yielded on the site that would be comfortable for the neighborhood. What we're looking at is working with them to find some conditions that would make this an appropriate development, whether that's 24 units, whether that's 10 units, or whether that's up to 42 units. That's something that we'll continue to be in negotiations and discussions with them. So by the time we get, to the city council, we'll have a good idea from the neighborhood and from the councilwoman if this is going to be an appropriate development. But we're continuing to have those discussions with them. To kind of touch on a few, just on the environmental and the soil and the structural, those are things that if this moves forward, that will, as you know, those will get this, worked out through the engineering and the development phase. And just, from a unit count, the reason 48 was a number that kept kind of coming up is when we had our very first neighborhood meeting, we're trying to be honest with them. It's like, if we were to maximize the site, we would have 48 units. We're not going to have 48 units. We're still fine tuning that pro forma. We're probably going to be in that 32 to 40 range, or 34 to 40 unit range. But not the 48. And so those are some of the conditions that we'll look at working with the community to put a final number on it, because the last thing this community wants is say, hey, we'll have 24 units, and then 6 months from now this goes into construction and boom, 48 are popping up on site. That's the last thing we want to see.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for anyone, applicant, staff? Motion. Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I've spoken with the councilwoman in this district, who, for the record, is probably the best council person to ever represent this district. She has another meeting planned for next week. Commissioner Graham got my joke. She has another meeting planned, like Alan said, for next week, and she looks forward to a lot of more participation. I think there have been a few community meetings that not a ton of people, not as many people showed up as she would have hoped. I think this discussion is good. I also think that the Alton Park plan is 23 years old and this land's vacant. And Dan and I had a discussion last week with Mayor Kelly about some of the older plans that we have. And it's unfortunate because the city over the last 20 years has fallen so far behind in keeping up with these plans. And we're kind of turbocharging it over the next 2 years, Dan, to get more of these plans updated citywide and also countywide through our contract with the county. So I think that just because the Alton Park plan of the year 2000, the year of the Bush-Gore election, says we're going to put single-family homes here, it clearly 23 years later doesn't mean that we're going to put single-family homes there because no one has. Knowing about the community goals, I'm going to move to recommend approval on this. It is the type of density that is called for and is being built across the street, much more units. The traffic will be slowed down by more cars. The motion is to recommend approval.
Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't, I've only been here now for 4 months. Do we have any bearing on Department of Transportation actually getting a traffic study done in this area if it's already that dangerous? That maybe, we can push to have something done there. But I'm in approval. Affordable housing is what everybody nationwide is pushing for, and that sounds like that this is the goal of this development. But can we do anything? Because I hear y'all's concerns, and I just don't know if we have.
Well,
anything
let me
so it's a question.
hopefully answer your question, but I do need a second. If there isn't one, maybe. Okay, so I do have a second. So there's some discussion. So and Councilman or Commissioner Anderson mentioned next week there was a community meeting. So there wasn't a condition on the recommendation for approval or a second, but conditions are typically where you see requests for that type of information. And I would anticipate, I believe most everybody, I was writing notes, most everybody mentioned traffic on Central Avenue. I could see that being a topic next week in the community meeting. And then also the council person can take that up with the Department of Transportation and get that, whatever information needs to be done. That's typically how it's done. So do you have a second, a motion to recommend approval to City Council? It has been seconded. Any additional discussion on the motion?
Maybe just a question.
Yes.
To me, this density, it's intense for that area. It makes me waver a little bit. Just wondering, from a buffering standpoint, what are the requirements for UGC next to that residential?
Right.
And is there even room for buffer?
There is a buffer requirement that would be required with a commercial abuts residential. Alan could probably there speak to if there's room for the buffer.
The way the UGC ordinance reads is when it's residential use and the UGC, it's a 10-foot buffer between us and the adjacent residential properties. And that's conditions that we can work through, whether it's all vegetative with the fence. There's other conditions and privacy measures that we can put in place.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a lot of pause about UGC in this area. And I do think it is a strange zone, but I also recognize how outdated our zoning code is and how few tools there are for neighborhood-friendly multifamily housing. So I would suggest, I'm not sure the proper way to phrase this, if it needs to be an amendment to the motion or something else, but adding the condition of residential uses only going forward.
So the motion has been amended by the motioner to residential condition residential only. Do I second agree? Okay. Any other discussion? Question?
I think I'm very pro development. That just seems extreme to the density there. And I do believe, I feel like we should, but it almost seems like this used to be a develop. This is looks to me like it's lots that have come out of the restrictions. It looks like it's part of a neighborhood. Obviously it's been there for a long time.
I don't know. I have a hard time supporting 117 units per acre density as much as I would like to. I just feel like that's a stretch for anywhere.
So what is the density? Is that what the density is?
It's rough. Based on it's roughly 114, 117 dwellings per acre. It's 48 units, but it's such a small lot. Shoots the number up.
I just wanted to verify that number. I hadn't heard that number. Yeah.
I was just going to mention the applicant has mentioned that they're still working through with the neighborhood association. They're still working towards a number that will hopefully make everybody comfortable. I don't know what the outcome of that will be, but it's my understanding that would fall more under the political process as this moves to city council. If it's not in keeping with what the city council wants to see and what the community wants to see, then it'll probably fail at city council or whatever they choose to do with it. But as far as this body goes, I think UGC with the residential only stipulation is maybe the best tool that we have right now. Hopefully we'll have better tools in the future, but for this kind of multifamily neighborhood housing, it's the only tool we have right now. So again, I share your concerns with the density. It's very dense, and hopefully that will get resolved going forward. But I trust the city council to make the right choices there. I think our decision here is with regards to the zone. So still.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Is there an opportunity to also provide a restriction on the number of units? The same way we're saying residential only. Let's just put a cap on it, say no more than 24 residential units on this site, because I do agree it is aggressive for the density.
Yeah, and I'll only offer that it sounds like that's going to be another important piece of a meeting prior to city council, but that can always be friendly amended if I get a motion or I get a comment to amend that. Mr. Anderson.
Typically, all of these things would go into conditions at the city council, and I imagine a lot of will it be 24, will it be 36? What's going to happen with the parking? I imagine a lot of that is going to be worked out and agreed to by parties next week. My intention would not be to arbitrarily set a number that is the right number today, knowing that more negotiations are taking place.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion? We do have a motion to recommend approval to the city council with the one condition, residential only. Yes, sir.
Comment. Just more of a recommendation, not necessarily to vote on, but to put in front of the city council, maybe just similar density to the complex across the street would be a solid starting point. Just a thought.
Thank you. Any more? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So 3. Do we need a roll call for that?
Yeah, maybe we could have a roll call.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Senator, you want to call that roll, Senator?
Just when we start getting nays, I'd rather have that on record. So thank you.
Yes.
Motion carries. And what's the date for? I know the first date is look for a community meeting, and then it will go in front of city council. Do you have that date?
Well,
Or
it will go to an agenda session first before it's determined. Typically, it'd be the second Tuesday in March,
Okay.
Which will be March 14th normally, but on the agenda session is March 7th.
Okay.
For the agenda set for city council. It
Okay.
may or may not be on the 14th. It's hard to check.
I just wanted to make sure that the residents that were here understand that it will go. Hopefully there'll be a community meeting in the prior to, but then look to March 7th. Thank you.
Chairman, the committee meeting will be the most important, where it's actually discussed in detail on the 7th at 3:30. There is no community input at that meeting, but that's the greatest discussion on it by the council.
Okay. Thank you. That's good information. Okay. Thank y'all. I'm going to go ahead and move to item number 2, which is case number 2023-0019, It's located at 1414 East 49th Street in the city of Chattanooga. It's to rezone from R1 zone to R2. Is there any opposition? Okay. And there is a staff recommendation to denies the applicant here. Okay. Mr. Schultz, if you'll take us through it.
Mr. Chairman, we did receive one letter in support of this.
Okay, thank you.
This is 2023-19, request to rezone from R1 residential zone to R2 residential zone, proposed use of a duplex. This acreage is 0.12 in size, proposing 2 units. That's a density of 16.6. Looking at the zoning map, to the north is R1 residential. To the east is R1. To the south is residential. However, further south along East 39th Street, there is some R2 at that location. And to the west of this side, immediately abutting this property, was R2. That property was rezoned in 2022 from R1 to R2 to bring an existing duplex back into conformance with the zoning code. This is a vacant piece of property. However, the one next door that's zoned R2 on the screen was an existing structure. Looking at adjacent land uses, again, this is a vacant piece of property. Immediately abutting this to the west is a duplex. To the north is vacant land. Further west, beyond the duplex, is single-family detached. To the east of this side is single-family detached. And to the south, along East 50th Street, is single-family detached dwellings. Here's a view of the site. The view on the left-hand side of the car is that's a single-family detached dwelling. On the right-hand side is the duplex that was rezoned last year. This is a view looking down West 49th Street. This is a view north of the site, which is single-family detached dwellings. This is a view of the single-family dwelling east of the site. And this is west of the site, which is, again, a duplex that was rezoned last year. This is in the Rossville Boulevard Community Plan, which was adopted in 2004. That plan recommendation is low-density residential. It does state that single-family dwellings are the dominant land use you would see in this general location or this particular piece of property. Here's a site plan that was submitted with a request. This request is not compatible with the adopted land use plan. The plan specifically maintains or mentions that this block should remain single-family residential. The lot size does not meet the minimum lot size requirements of the R2 zone. The applicant can develop this site with a single-family dwelling and also either have an attached or detached ADU, which would allow 2 units on this property. Staff recommended to deny this request based on those reasons.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff? Councilwoman Hill.
So this is an interesting case because also I noticed in the packet that the applicant has coordinated with the city to receive home funds to help build this out as a two family residence. I know that you all make the recommendation that there could be an ADU built on site. It seems to me that the site plan that has been provided could actually be built as drawn using just the ADU allotment, because if it's all under one roof, there's not a square footage requirement. The 700 square feet, I believe, is only for if it's a detached ADU versus an attached ADU. And these both have, this site plan has entries on the side versus on the front. And there are rules about you can't have 2 front doors on an R1 with an attached or detached ADU.
Correct. And I do believe the ADU, even though it's attached, still has a size limit of 700 square foot. Is it? I think so. I'm pretty sure that's correct. Even though it's attached, it still has a limit on the attached portion of 700 square foot.
So if someone were to build out a basement, for example, they would not be able to build out the entirety of the basement?
Correct. It'd still be limited to 700 square foot.
Okay. So I wonder from the applicant, what's the total square footage of this building?
Yeah. And sir, if you want to go ahead and come up, because you're going to have some time here in just a second. But if you want to give your name and address, you can maybe go ahead and answer that question. Then you'll have a little bit of time to present.
Okay.
And then, ma'am, y'all will have an opportunity.
Sure. My name is John Wad, 647 South Bishop Trail with Sandsbury Valley, with this project here. Do you want me to continue, or is there an additional question?
If you could maybe hit that question in your, but you've got 7 minutes to present. So if you want to go ahead, go right ahead.
Yeah. So this is a project for vacant piece of land that's currently zoned R1. We want it to go R2. We're working with the City of Chattanooga Economic Development for a home funds project for low-income affordable housing. Our plan calls for roughly 1,000 square foot for each unit, so we could fit a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on each side for a family. In our experience, we haven't come across too many needs for just 1-bedroom family units. So the attached dwelling, the ADU, we looked at that and we saw where the 700 square foot minimum would be a limitation in us accepting the home funds and bringing this project to fruition. You got to forgive my ignorance. It's the first time I've ever had to do something like this. So we do have the support of Councilwoman Dotley. We did reach out to her. We sought some guidance from zoning and planning. We spoke with the neighbor adjacent. I think you saw in the photo, they disapprove of construction going on there. They currently use it as parking and play area for children. We do have plans to have entrance in the front and entrance on the side, separating the two units. I think we don't impact our density requirements pretty low. It's 16 traffic. I don't think it's too big of a issue here in this part of the town. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Mr. Maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the first one's here for staff. Councilwoman had mentioned the ADU, and then y'all said y'all thought there was a 700 square foot. Is there a variance possibility for that, or is that?
I'm not aware of that. That'd be like a use variance. Okay. Keep in mind too that this lot, like I said earlier, does not meet the minimum lot size requirements for duplex in the R2 zone. Even if the zoning gets approved, there's another step. They can go in front of the Board of Appeals and get a special permit for the duplex because of lot size. But that's established in the current zone.
On our map, it's a little hard to see. Is that an R2 right next to it currently?
Yes, and that came in last year. That was rezoned from R1 to R2, and that the reason that was a little different, that was an existing structure. And there was, from what I remember on that case, there was opposition on that request as well. And a lot of it stemmed from parking. It was a huge issue. From memory, I think they were already using it as a duplex. I'm not sure if they, for some reason they come in to rezone it. We got caught through. No, it was. I think they was already using it.
Mr. Chair, one quick follow up for the applicant, if I can. What are your plans on parking? Is that going to be all on site, or is that going to be street parking?
Off the street. So we'll have parking right in front of the main entrance of the unit.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for the applicant? Okay, sir, ma'am, if y'all want to, you've got 9 minutes total if you need it, but if you just give your name and address.
It's not got enough square footage.
If you could, for the record, your name and address, and then
1416 East 49th Street is what I own. That's not my home address.
And your name?
Joe Glover.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
12 years ago, y'all denied me to build a duplex on 1416 East 49th Street, 1414 East 49th Street, or 1418 East 49th Street, and one across the street. I had 3 lots. Minimum square footage is 9,500 square feet. Not nowhere near that. It's only like 50 something square feet, 5,100 something square feet.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think he did mention whether he gets rezoning to R2, he's got to get he's got to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals also prior to that. But is that correct, Brian?
Yes.
So you are correct. There's not enough square footage on the lot for an R2.
This ordinance was amended in 2015 to create a special permit for a 2-family or multifamily dwellings on lots of record. So that was probably not created when it sounds like when he was trying to go through the rezoning process.
Oh, I got you. So that may be
Yeah,
the
they
difference.
changed it. They changed it from R2 back to R1 because none of them lots down there are big enough to build duplex on. Now, they're changing some of them back, which the one on the other side was a pre-existing duplex 20 years ago, and then they've changed it to a house. Now they've changed it back to a duplex, but it still had the 2 meters on it. And all that.
Yes, ma'am.
So I am a
Your name. Yeah.
My
your
name's
name.
Brittany Murphy, and I'm the resident at 1416 East 49th Street. I speak for most of my neighbors. As he stated, we oppose this plan, and the reason why is because there's no parking. There's nowhere for anybody to park, even if they park in front of their street. If they park within the 40 feet that they have on this 5,125 square foot lot, there's nowhere for them, their mailbox and their garbage cans to go. When people do street side parking, the garbage man can't get through to empty the garbage cans. It has already caused a major influx of trash and rodents all up and down our street already because the duplex that you guys approved last year, that is at 1418 East 49th Street. That's already a problem. Yes, I do think that, a house should be built there, and I would really love to have some neighbors, but it would be really just quite absurd to stack us on top of each other like that, where there's no way we can get in and out of our houses or even take our trash out. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, if you want to, maybe you've got a couple 2 minutes to respond.
Sure. So in our proposed plan, we aim to have 3 parking spots in the front of the duplex there. And from our perspective, we're looking at this rather simply, whether it's a 2,000 square foot duplex or a 2,000 square foot single family home, it's going to fit on there in one zone or the other. So, our position was to create it into a duplex and provide a spot for 2 units, which we believe that the land can accommodate as a lot of record with the special approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that the parking requirements would be satisfactory as we've designed. We're open to having conditions for trash or whatever it may be, but we feel that the need that the city has for low-income, affordable housing, new housing, safe housing, clean, outweighs the risks. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Matthews.
I've got a question. If you wouldn't mind to come back up, I've got. You mentioned about the parking on the site plan. It looks like it's to the rear, and you said to the front. Is it going to be from 49th Street? You have 3 spaces there.
Correct.
Not to the rear as they show, and there are definitely off-street parking. They're going to pull off the street.
There is off-street parking. We do plan to, if approval, have a variance for the rear setback, so we can set the entire dwelling back a little bit more and have additional space for parking off-street.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Based on the staff recommendation and the information about the overall size of the lot not being appropriate for a duplex to begin with, I'd like to motion to deny with the recommendation that the applicant look at the opportunities to use the ADU ordinance as it is written. And, you all know that I'm a huge proponent of affordable housing, and I think that comes in lots of shapes and sizes, and the neighborhood needs to be able to accommodate the cars and the garbage cans, and makes a lot of sense, I think, what the neighbors have said. So that's why I make a motion to deny.
Okay. I have a motion to deny. It has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. Hearing Mr.
One more quick question for staff. In terms of setback differences between R1 and R2. The applicant had indicated that, in terms of structure size, there wouldn't really be a difference between whether it was a single family or a duplex. Is that accurate between the two zones? Or?
Yeah, the size. The zoning code doesn't address the housing size. The setbacks are the same.
In between R1 and R2,
yes.
they are the same?
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay. We have a motion to recommend denial to City Council. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Can we let's do a roll call if you don't mind. Thank you. The motion was to deny. So a yes is to deny, a no. So a yes. Yeah, I think you got that right. So the motion was let's do it again. The motion was to deny. So a yes is to agree with deny. A no is to not agree. So yes.
Yes.
Seven approved. How many are up here? I can't count.
12.
Yep.
So you got 7.
Motion.
Yes.
Motion approves. Motion to deny approves. We had 7 yays. Correct? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. Okay. So again for the same individuals, the recommendation to City Council will be to deny from this body. City Council will take this up in March. Thank you. Okay, moving on the agenda to item number 3 is case number 2023-0020. It's located at 7368, 7376, 7384, 7390 Old Cleveland Pike in the city of Chattanooga. It's to rezone from R1 residential zone to RTZ residential townhouse 0 lot line. Has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is there opposition? There. Okay, well that's the time for opposition. So let me we'll go ahead and go through it. Were you okay with the conditions? Okay, so sir, you'll have a little bit of time. Brian, if you would go through it briefly, and then sir, if you want to come up, and also the applicant.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, we also did receive one letter in opposition. Their concerns with lack of infrastructure, traffic, and condition of Old Cleveland Pike. And it's noted in your spreadsheet. This is 2023-20. This request to rezone from R1 residential zone to RTZ. Proposed townhouse units. Number of acres is 2.75. Proposing 18 units. That's a density of 6.5. Looking at the zoning map, you have RZ1 to the north and R1 as well. To the south of this side is R4, R1 and C2 with some conditions. To the west of this side is R1, and to the east of this side is R1. There's been some zoning history in this area. In 2019, there was a request to rezone the subject site as well as the property to the south from R1 to R4. Staff recommended approve with conditions. The application was withdrawn at City Council. Then in 2021, the case come in for the southern properties, so this abutting the site, to rezone from R1 to R4 and C2, which you see on the screen with conditions. Looking at adjacent land uses, this property is currently vacant. To the north, across Old Cleveland Pike, is single-family detached dwellings. You have some vacant land. To the west is single-family detached dwellings. To the south of this site, abutting Bonnie Oaks, is vacant property. And at the corner of Bonnie Oaks and Silverdale Road is to the north is a Taco Bell or some commercial uses. To the east of the site is institutional. If you go further south across Bonnie Oaks, you have the institutional church and then commercial uses at the corner. A portion of this property is located in the floodway or flood hazard area, so that has to be taken into account during development. This is a view of the site looking towards Bonnie Oaks. This is a view of the site looking down Old Cleveland Pike. Site's just on the right-hand side. This is a view north of the site, which is some single-family detached dwellings. This is further view east of the site. This is west of the site. And this is at the corner of Silverdale Road and Bonnie Oaks. You can see the Taco Bell and commercial and the church at that intersection. This is in the Shalford Road Lee Highway area plan, which was adopted in 2005. The plan recommendation is single unit residential. This area does designate single unit as being appropriate, with higher density residential in the future may be appropriate as well. Here's a site plan submitted with a request with 2 curb cuts off Old Cleveland Pike with 18 units. Staff reasons for the approval conditions are the following. The site plan is located in a focus area of the Shalford Road Lee Highway plan, which basically states that higher density residential may be appropriate in this location. The request would be compatible with adjacent land uses and development form. The RTZ zone would act as a buffer or transition area from the R4 and C2 zones to the south, to the R1 and RZ ones to the north. So staff come up with 4 conditions. Maximum of 4 units per massed building. Parking shall be located at the rear only, and a maximum of 2 curb cuts along Old Cleveland Pike unless additional curb cuts are required during the permitting process. So this comes to you from Planning Commission staff with a recommendation to approve with 3 conditions.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions? You're good with the conditions? Okay. Sir, if you want to, if you've got some comments or some questions, he's here we're going to have, you're available to say that, and then he can maybe respond to some of those questions. But you can ask us if your name and address.
Okay. Jerry Hagan at 7221 Bonnie Oaks Drive. I'm not opposed to this development. I just think the motion to add the screening or buffer all the way across the back would be what I would hope to happen. And when I met with Alan a few nights ago, I didn't even think about that. It was after that meeting I realized that I think it would be a lot better if we had the screening all the way across.
Thank you, sir. Sir, did you also want to comment on this? Sure.
William Morris, 7404 Old Cleveland Pike. And the conditions, I didn't hear it come up there. I was under the impression that road was going to be wide, and we've got 13 and a half foot all of it. That's how wide that road is right now. We're putting 18 more houses in there. That road needs to be wider. It says he's got that, but I didn't see it in your conditions that this road was going to be wide to at least 20 foot or 21 foot.
Okay, well, it's not in the conditions, you're right, but if thank you for the comment. And go ahead and give your name, and since I had you speak second. Thanks.
Alan Jones, 1112 Wilmouth Road, Dunlap, Tennessee, Stone Creek Consulting. Under the staff recommendation, there is a note at the bottom that says a permitting development note that the applicant should be aware that should the development move forward, city street standards and street frontage will be required by the developer. So the developer knows that, for this permit, for this LDP to be approved, we'll have to work with both CDOT and the fire department, and just whether it's, I think it's like anywhere from like 13 to 18 feet wide right now, but we'll have to widen it to 20 or 22, 24 feet, whatever the LDO dictates when we submit our permit. So whether that's a condition or if it's just part of the permitting, we're fine either way.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, Mr. Maybe.
Can you speak to the buffering in terms of on the backside that he mentioned, please?
Yeah, so his property is kind of catty cornered to the left of this site. If you go one more, yeah, right there. I believe that's where his property is. Right behind us is R4. We don't have any issues bringing that buffer along along the, adding a condition that we bring that buffer along that R4 property. I'll leave that up to y'all's discretion.
That's correct. A landscape buffer is not required at that location.
I have a motion to approve the conditions from staff with the addition of adding a buffer along the R4.
Mr. Chairman, can we clarify what that buffer is in terms of width, perhaps, or?
Matt,
10-foot landscape buffer.
I'm assuming it would match whatever that adjacent to the R1 is. Is that correct? Is that the intent of the motion? Okay.
Type C buffer.
So, okay. So we have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. There's 3 staff conditions and 1 additional for the buffer along R4. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4 is case number 2023-0022, located at 7621 Goodwin Road, City of Chattanooga. It's to rezone from R1 residential zone to R4 special zone. Has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is the applicant present? Okay. Are you good with the conditions? Is there any opposition here? Okay. Have a motion to approve with conditions. It has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is case right next door, I guess. Oh, special PUD. So case number 2023-0023, 7555 and 7621 Goodwin Road, City of Chattanooga. It's the special permit for residential planned unit development. Staff recommendation is to approve with conditions. Are you aware, Mr. Price, are you aware of the PUD conditions? Okay. Have a motion to approve with conditions. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Case number 2023-0024. It's located at 1673 South Holtzclaw Avenue in the City of Chattanooga. It's to rezone from UGC Urban General Commercial Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone. One is pre-August 30th of 22. One is post. Has a staff recommendation to approve with conditions. Is the applicant present? Are you aware of the conditions? Are you good with them? Okay. Is there any opposition to this case? A motion to approve. It has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Case number 2023-0025 is located at 8812 and 8816 East Brainerd Road in Hamilton County. It's a rezone from A1 Agricultural District and R2A Rural Residential District and C2 Local Business Commercial District to RTZ Residential Townhouse Zero Lot Line District. As a motion to approve with conditions. Is the applicant present? Are you good with the conditions? Okay. Is there any opposition? Okay. Mr. Schultz, if you'll take us through this case.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. We also did receive several emails in opposition to this request. Most of it centered on concerns of traffic, destroying wildlife habitat, flooding, and condition of Fuller Road, and then overcrowding of the schools. Looks like very similar comments. It's in your spreadsheet you have in front of you. This is a request. This is in the county. This is 2023-25. This is a request to rezone this property from A1 Agricultural District and R2A Rural Residential District and C2 Local Business District to RTZ Residential Townhouse Zero Lot Line District. Proposed use of townhomes. It's roughly 28.2 acres in size. Applicant's proposing 100 townhomes That's a density of 3.5 dwelling units per acre. Just looking at the zoning map, there's a variety of zones in this area from R1 and C2 to the north, to the east, R2 and A1, to the south is R1 and A1. Then to the west of this side, you have C2, R2A, and A1. So there's a mixture of zones in this area. There's been a lot of zoning history in this area over the years, from rezonings to C2 and along Fuller Road, introducing some R1 requests in the city of Chattanooga, and then further along Fuller Road is RTZ. And you have some UGC along Morris Hill. So there's been a mixture of zoning requests in this area. Looking at land use, this is currently a large portion of the site's vacant land. They do have vacant commercial building at the corner of Fuller and East Brainerd. However, that's in the city of Chattanooga. It's not part of this request, but it is owned by this property. There's also a single-family detached dwelling on this property. To the north, along East Brainerd, you have single-family and commercial. To the west of the site, across Fuller Road, single-family detached dwellings. To the east, single-family, and so to the southeast, a single-family along Fuller Road. This is a view of the site from Fuller Road. This is the site. This is the site on the left-hand side of the screen. This is the intersection of East Brainerd and Fuller Road. This is north of the site across East Brainerd Road. This is some of the view of the homes along Fuller Road, south of the site. This is east of the site on East Brainerd Road. Site's just on the left-hand side. This is looking on East Brainerd Road, some of the commercial uses you see. And this is west of the site on Fuller Road. This property is in the White Oak Mountain Area Plan, which was adopted in 2019. The plan recommendation or place type designation is suburban residential, which recommends low to moderate density, typically 3 to 5 dwelling units per acre. Primary uses include single family or single unit living detached. There are some opportunities for 2-unit detached and patio homes and townhomes with limited massing on the units. This is the original site plan that was submitted with a request. You can see there's 7 single-family dwellings located along Fuller Road, as well as the townhomes. Since this plan was submitted, the applicant did make changes to the plan. This is the site plan. The single-family detached along Fuller Road were removed. So this is all now a 100-unit townhome development. One entrance off of East Brainerd Road. The clubhouse and amenities are along East Brainerd Road with internal access off of East Brainerd. Staff recommended approve with 5 conditions. The reasoning for the approval is that the request is compatible with adopted land use plan of goals of providing a variety of housing opportunities, as well as protecting the rural character of the area. The request with conditions would be compatible with adjacent land uses and development form. This would allow the creation of a different housing form and different type, as well as cluster development, while also protecting the steep slopes on this site. And that's where some of these conditions come into play. Condition number 1, prior to issuance of a land disturbing permit, the applicant shall set aside 14 acres of sloped area to remain undisturbed, and such area shall be shown on site plan with high visibility on the site with high visibility fencing or other method as determined by the Hamilton County Engineering Department. This area is to remain undisturbed except for removal of dead and diseased trees or removal of invasive species. Condition number 2, no more than 1 curb cut on East Brainerd Road unless otherwise determined during permitting by Hamilton County Highway Department that another curb cut is required. ADA compliant sidewalks, a minimum of 5 feet in width, shall be installed interior to the site to provide pedestrian connectivity. Condition number 4, maximum density of 4 dwelling units per acre. And condition number 5, no lots for attached units shall front along Fuller Road. So this comes to the Planning Commission from staff with recommendation to approve with those 5 conditions.
Okay, thank you, Brian. That's state. Number 2 would have to be from the state, TDOT, since that section of East Brainerd Road is TDOT. If you would, come on in, your name and address, and I believe, okay, I want to make sure the gentleman, if you just want to come over here, you'll have opportunity after. Yes, sir. Hit that little person. There you go. It's on. You got it.
Jeff Sykes, Ace Engineering, 714 Cherry Street, Chattanooga. So we've had, so the development of this lot our intent is to basically do 120 townhome units. After the removal of the 7 units along Fuller Road, we needed a little bit more density. So specific to the recommendations that staff has, we're requesting 5 units per acre and preservation of no less than 7 acres. We think we can achieve more than that, but until we work out the site plan, especially with the topography, that's our biggest challenge. So we need to have a little bit of latitude.
Thank you. So your issue would be with item number 1, which instead of 14, you would say 7 acres, depending on your site plan. And then the item number 5, you would ask for a maximum density of 5 dwelling units.
Item number 4, maximum density of 5 units per acre.
If I said that wrong, yeah. Item number 4, you're requesting 5. Okay.
And RTZ allows for 8 units per acre, so we're still in that low density range.
And I believe you said the area plan had from recommended 3 to 5.
That's correct.
Okay, that's right. If there's anything else you want to add, or if you just want to reserve time, or if there's any questions for the applicant, we can hear from opposition.
I'd like to reserve time, please.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Brently Wood folks, I think would like to have some sort of buffer zone in there. What are the chances you put in buffer zone?
Well, so during the meeting, we offered that. It did not make it as a condition, but that we've already agreed to do a double stacked evergreen buffer along Brently Woods. With the way the topography works, it's tough for us to get really any more distance away from Brently Woods. So that was our remedy to that, is to basically do an evergreen buffer along there, whether it be Leland cypresses or something that will provide that buffer for both noise and for aesthetics. But the site topography limits us on how far we can get away from Brently Woods.
You would be willing to add that?
Absolutely, yes.
And that is great. That is on 5-lane road, is it not, right?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Just your name and address.
Joseph Walker, 212 Brentley Woods Drive. I live in Brentley Woods subdivision. Could you pull that one back up for the new proposal? Right there at Brentley Woods, the houses that come up to the very top corner, right in here. Yes, right in there. That area here I had the councilman come up and Mr. Lee, and we walked over part of the property up there, and where it's leveled out here, and they said they're going to make sure that all the water runoff runs toward the Fuller Road area. But the housing in that one corner area, we don't oppose that, but we would rather not have those right there at that corner. If there was any way to lose like 3 on each, like 3 going this way and 3 coming right there, that would make it a whole lot easier and a little bit more of a buffer into Brentley Woods.
Okay. Just so you understand our opportunity here, there can be some additional buffers. A lot of that probably is going to take part when they do engineering, but I'll let the applicant, he can respond to some of your questions. Sir, do you also want to speak on this? Okay.
Matt Burton at 9127 Berkshire Circle. I know I'm a subdivision away from this new development, but I'm echoing probably some of your emails that have been received concerning the traffic on East Brainerd. Too, I was unaware that the homes on Fuller Road were removed, which is good because we don't need any more entrances onto Fuller Road. That road's being abused now by construction traffic, and there's so many and low bid work on repairs on the road just don't make. It's an atrocious road to drive down. I've been on dirt roads in Africa that are smoother than that. So that's something to be concerned about. Also, you got the school conditions. We're going to bring in 100 families. You're going to add traffic, not only with cars, 100 homes, be 200 more vehicles out on the road. Trying to get onto the road at 7 o'clock in the morning on East Brainerd, which is congested pretty bad right now. And if anybody wants to go to Appleton at 5 o'clock, you've got to wait 25 minutes because of the backup that's coming back almost to Banks Road. Okay, so that road, East Brainerd hasn't been extended as a 4-lane or 3-lane, if you would, with, yet. So just trying to figure out how that's going to work. And also, we've got to really consider the wildlife. We just keep building development after development after development. And it's kind of neat to have deer show up in my backyard every once in a while, mainly because I have the YMCA in my backyard. And we're going to take out 28 acres. We're going to give 7 to wildlife. So we have owls, hawks, deer, and some other critters that we really don't like to have around, but they're part of the environment. So as we continue, and also on East Brainerd Road, on Fuller Road, at the end of Berkshire Circle, there's 13 more homes going in there. And they just took a hillside and leveled it. So how much do we really need? Are all the complexes that are near Volkswagen sold? Are all the homes and divisions really all sold out? I'm not aware of that, but if it is, and we're blowing up faster than Disney expected Orlando to blow up. So I echo the thoughts of probably the people that are against this project.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sykes, you do have a chance, and I think that gentleman behind you had 1 or 2 questions. You can.
On that upper right corner, I know y'all they are proposing that y'all lose. Are y'all willing to lose any in those corners right there? That's closest to Brentley Woods. That's the one that's less than probably. Yeah. How close would you say that's probably?
Let me let him answer that. There are some inherent buffers related to a rezoning potentially with, or I don't know what they are. Brian would know. And then obviously probably some challenges with the site and whatever that site engineering looks like. But let's let him comment on that. This is rezoning relative. It's not necessarily approving this site plan. There's a lot of permitting, engineering, due diligence that'll have to be done prior to that. So, but Mr. Sykes, if you would.
Yeah, so really the buffer between Brentley Woods and that location to the nearest residential unit is closer. So basically from back of home to back of townhome gives you about 280 to 300 feet from what we pulled off. Now, from lot line to disturbance area, it is closer. But really from back of structure to back of structure, it's a little bit further. I guess my answer would be is, we've got to add approximately 20 units to this in order to offset the 7 residential lots that we basically conceded during the neighborhood meeting and to the people that expressed concerns. We can do our very best. Obviously we're about 30% design with preliminary. There's got to be a lot of, number one, that back slope has not been, geotech has not been done. We're showing a 3-to-1 slope. For a 2-to-1 slope there, it may have to be 3-to-1. If that were the case, it would push it back a little bit further. But with the topography, your land disturbance, you're kind of chasing slopes down. And then in areas where you're putting fill, you're chasing it down. So we're trying to get the density that we need, which is north of 4, closer to 5 units per acre, but also work within the existing constraints of the site, simply because once you start moving it off of what that I consider the ideal area where there's somewhat of a plateau, once you start moving it off of that, you're chasing slopes down, and it's just very difficult to develop it. So I guess my answer is we'd do the best we could to provide a little bit more buffer from Brentley Woods. But that's why we came back and really didn't make that commitment during the neighborhood meeting. Instead, we offered to put a kind of a double stack of evergreen buffer trees along that back property line.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, between the landscape ordinance, it will require where this property butts the residential Brentley Woods, a 10-foot landscape buffer type C along that perimeter.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
I was just going to say that you're going to continue your engineering before you have a commission meeting. You'll have that a little more refined. You can talk to them a little more at that time. Is that correct?
We've been released to go ahead and to do DD drawings in order for the preliminary planning. So that will progress. Yeah.
So you'll be able to speak better about his concerns at the commission meeting if,
Yes,
if this were to pass. I have a question from the staff. We're making a condition that they put away half their property. Is that, pretty close? What was our suggestion?
It was 28 acres total. We had reached out to the engineer at that time, which is Mr. Sykes, and got the number 14 acres, and that's roughly what we had come up. We didn't just make the number up on our own.
I know, I get it, but I don't. For me, the engineering, the topography is going to limit it in terms of what it can do. I'm assuming. I get, but it sort of goes back to what we talked about in terms of affordable housing and putting things on it, whether it's not necessary to precedent setting. The other thing I was asking about is that you talk in the conditions we talk about the sidewalks. Why are we not are you cool? Are you good with that? The sidewalks?
We're doing sidewalks anyway.
Right.
Correct.
But as a condition from our staff, why are we doing that on a R1 or a RT? Are we required to do that, or why are we doing it if we're not required?
It's not required. It's not required in the zone to do it.
Yeah.
And to back on your acres thing about the land stuff, the reason we chose that was it's a trade-off. Look at the compatibility. This is all single-family attached dwellings. This is introducing a new form on a steep slope. That was our intent behind that condition. It's a trade-off in changing the housing form to preserve those steep slopes.
I get it, but you're also converting some C2 to R property as well. But I guess I want to move. The question I have is, why did we feel it necessary to put sidewalk? If they're doing it, I'm all for the market. I don't understand why we're conditioning that on a development.
Let me only offer that you can make a motion and strike whatever conditions. And so, very good.
It's internal to the project, and they're planning on doing it anyway. So I think it was just redundant to what they were doing, and we're just going to make it more specific that it would happen. But on the acreage thing, I think it's the same thing. I think we anticipated they were going to retain some amount of land, more than 10 acres, it looked like, or up to 14. So it was just trying to preserve that as a condition, that they wouldn't clear cut it or something. Yeah. So.
Mr. Chairman, can I go ahead and address some of the other concerns that were brought up by the other property owner real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, on traffic, we had Steve Meyer look and basically the entrance onto Brainerd Road. We've got about 1,500 feet to 1,200 feet clear line of sight in both directions. And then really the peak traffic that'll be generated from the site will be moving in the same direction that traffic is normally heading to. So in the city, that you won't have that conflict to the left where people are coming home and then coming back home in the evenings where the direction of traffic is, you'll be making that right turn. And Steve Meyer did look at the capacity of East Brainerd Road in that area, and it does have capacity. As far as the stormwater, basically we're going down about 30 feet. One of the challenges with the site is the grading. There's about 170,000 yards that has to come off of it. So we're basically lowering the site down and basically creating somewhat of a flat area. Right now, from the apex of the hill, all the water is going towards the Brentley Woods subdivision. Obviously, when we do flatten it out, we'll be capturing the water that falls in basically any of the impervious surface areas and then diverting that to detention. So if anything, we'll be lessening the stormwater that's going to Brentley Woods currently. The wildlife and the density, I can't really speak to. We're trying to preserve everything we can. As you can kind of see, the areas shading it green are based on this site plan, the proposed disturbance areas. And then the rest of it, especially along Fuller Road, you have a pretty substantial buffer there. So a lot of the site from that direction you won't be able to see during the summer periods when the leaves are on the trees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, motions? Mr. Bragg. Okay. Have a motion with some amended conditions. If anybody needs those reread, Brian's going to do that. But I have a motion and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda, last item on the agenda under new business. Well, no, it's not. Last zoning case under new business is case number 2023-0026, located at 335 Browns Ferry Road in the city of Chattanooga. It's to rezone from R5 residential zone to R3 MD moderately density zone. Has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition? Have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So I call out this one, right? This plan of service annexation. So item number 9 is a resolution adopting the written report of proposed plan of services for annexation for property located at 5619 Clark Road as required by TCA 651-102B. And this is, okay, go ahead. I'm assuming the
applicants here.
Gotcha. And so this is a request for annexation from the county into the city.
That's correct. The applicant has requested through the city attorney's office to annex this property 5619 Clark Road into the city of Chattanooga. Planning Commission is not taking action on the annexation. That's a city council action. Planning Commission is charged through state law to talk about the plan of services, what types of services will be provided if this was annexed in. You see large majority on the site plan is in the city of Chattanooga, with the exception of that triangle piece that's on the screen. It's roughly a little over acres in size.
You're talking about the hash.
The hash area.
There. Gotcha.
Because where those buildings are located, it would split the city-county limit lines. So it makes sense to annex it. They have requested to annex it. Staff reviewed the plan of services. It seems reasonable on timing of police services and all that. So staff recommends to approve the plan of services as presented. There are certain things the plan of services has to address in terms of fire, police, sewer services. Sewer services will be provided by WWTA, this location.
Dr. Holland, go ahead.
Does the legislation state do the residents not have to vote on that now?
No, sir.
They can request. He's the owner. So the owner of the property is requesting to be annexed so that they can move forward with annexation.
I understand that, but I thought the residents of the community had. Oh, okay. Got you.
Yes.
Got you. It's not the surrounding people. It's just the people in that.
Right. And this has been advertised today for plan of services.
Okay,
it will be advertised at City Council for annexation and adoption of plan of services.
I've got a quick question about the rest of the site. Is there currently sewer to the part that is in the city currently?
Correct. That property was also annexed in the city, I think 2021 or 2022 as well. So all this property has been annexed in the city. It's currently provided by WWTA, and they will continue to provide that sewer service.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to clarify, this is a request by the property owner for annexation. For anybody with a red lanyard listening in the back, especially, the city of Chattanooga is not attempting to annex anything by force, nor are we allowed to. I've been in many meetings where we have had the meeting just to make sure we are doing this 100% within the state law, including the recent change. This is the applicant, and there are no affected current residents of Hamilton County in this. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I would only add, and you, Brian mentioned it, that the city line runs through the potential development. So from a regulatory perspective, building inspection, all that, it would be very difficult. So, okay. So you did look at the plan of services. The majority of the property is undeveloped, correct? And it's currently inside the city limits. This is just to approve the plan of service for the smaller area to be included in a potential owner requested annexation.
Yes, this seems reasonable. Now, we did not reach out to all the departments to make sure they had any comments, but additional fire protection will be provided. Police protection will be provided. Stormwater will be provided as normal. Garbage service, street maintenance and clearing as the normal procedures go. Okay. Only difference of this, it will be in the city, but sewer will be provided by WWTA.
Okay. Well, I'll entertain a motion. Okay. I have a motion to approve. It has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We have a staff update for Shepherd Community Study.
I'm gonna give a little intro to this. Just tell me what. Councilwoman Burrs has been asking, over the last year that we really look at the airport area, and just to make sure that we are considering the economic potential of the airport as in the city and the county, looking at what the zoning is around the airport, other kinds of interactions. So we've had we have a regular standing meeting with the airport manager and Public Works to talk about a number of things. But when we started that, she really wanted to make sure we first got an update to the Shepherd plan. Shepherd community is a historic community out there. And so we worked on that, and now we're concluding that. We're going to keep working around the airport because it's an important place in the city.
Okay. I'm Karen Hunt with the Planning Agency. Excuse me. And just to be clear, we're not submitting this for adoption. This is really just a briefing to let you know how we've been working with the neighborhood. Also, Danny Ross, a fairly new senior planner on our staff, would have been here to present. He's been the project manager for that, but he is on vacation this week. So we had multiple meetings with the neighborhood association, and you can go ahead and go to the next slide, Brian. Thanks. Really, most of their concerns were what we would call kind of maintenance, upkeep issues. And we've tried to address all of those. One of the things they first asked was for us to relook at their boundary. A previous plan completed back in 2007 shrunk their neighborhood boundary considerably. It was done for good intentions because there was another plan in the Shallowford-Lee Highway area that included some of this area. And I guess it was done to avoid confusion, but the neighborhood wanted all their boundary back. So we did. We went, changed their boundary back. If you see the area, I guess it looks blue on the screen there, is what we added back in. So it includes some on both the east and the west sides of Highway 153. The highway does really bisect their neighborhood association, but only physically, culturally, socially. They were all still very engaged. They have a really active neighborhood association there. Next slide. In addition to the boundary change, they prioritized a few things they asked us to look at. They asked about getting some dead trees replanted. So between the Coca-Cola Corporation and who had initially planted the trees for them and the city's urban forester, those trees have been replaced. The area also has a really rich history. And we actually suggested to them that they might want to think about some historical markers through their neighborhood. They like that idea, so we put them in touch with the State Historical Commission, and the neighborhood has taken the initiative and have applied for a grant to have some historical markers involved. So that's underway. Also, there are some bike lanes currently along Shepherd Road and the Airport Connector Road, but they stop when you cross over the Highway 153 bridge. And so they asked us if we could look into reconnecting those. So we've talked to CDOT, and they now have on their to-do list to restripe the lanes on that bridge so that the bike lanes are visible and actually continue. They also had some street repair issues. We put them in touch with the 311 folks on that. There is also a hill, a very wooded hill, behind the community center. That property is owned by the Highland Memorial Garden Cemetery, but they thought it might be a good place for some walking trails if the cemetery were to agree to that, because it does back up to their community park. We talked with the Trust for Public Land about it, put them in touch with the neighborhood, and TPL is excited about it because on the other side of the hill is Bethel Bible Village. So they're thinking that might be a good connection over the hill and into that community as well. So they're looking into that to see if it's feasible in the future. Also looking, even though they have a great park on the east side of Highway 153, there's really not much on the west side of 153. So they're also working now with the City Parks Department on maybe looking at maybe a small park around the airport side of 153. Next. So really that's it in a nutshell. Like I said, the community has been really engaged in we're loving that they're actually taking the initiative on some of this. The city and county can't do everything. So I think it's great that they're taking on some of the work themselves. We're going to continue to stay in touch with them, check in on some of these projects, see how they're going, and just offer any help we can. Other than that, we're not seeing any major zoning or land use changes at this point. But this area will be included in the Brainerd Eastridge Area 6 plan. So when we kick off that process in the next month, they will be included in that. And that is really it, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Karen.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to say one thing to add, unless there's some questions.
Well, go ahead, Dan.
If you flip back in the report back here, there is I guess it was Coca-Cola that helped fund a lot of these improvements out there for the crosswalks and sidewalks and other things. I mean, Coca-Cola is within their community area, and so it's funny, they take the Coca-Cola employees like cakes and pies, and they do all kinds. They have a real good relationship with the Coca-Cola, which is really nice. But that hawk signal that's there, I just wanted to draw attention to that. We got the TPO got a grant from the federal government in the last few weeks for the Safe Streets for All grant, which is going to give us some planning money to hire a consultant to basically citywide look at all the safety issues we have. And then once we have that plan, then the federal government's going to, over the next 5 years, have lots of money to distribute for lots of types of improvements. But I bring that up just because we're having this discussion of sidewalks and things. And I think overall, we want to just create a community that's as safe as can be. Every time I talk about transportation to folks, I tell you, you don't think about it, but the most important thing in transportation is safety until you have something happen. You don't think about it until something in your family or somebody you know. So I just wanted to stress that we are always thinking about, as we grow as a city and a county, it's just going to be more opportunities for people to get hurt crossing streets and things like that. So just wanted to share that to you. I think Shepherd Community is kind of a success story. And going through this package again yesterday, I was telling Barry and some other folks, I think we don't talk a lot, but there is a lot of great development happening in the city and the county. Lots of good things that we're doing here at RPA, and I think we're really on a good path this year. So I think there's just a lot of success that we're experiencing. And so looking forward to the rest of 2023.
Thank you, Dan. Councilwoman.
Karen, I really appreciate you, your team doing this study with the Shepherd community. I was just blown away as I read through it and learned so much about this neighborhood. And I knew a little bit of it, just about the split of the neighborhood and how difficult that has been. I was really inspired by everything that this neighborhood association has done, and I appreciate you compiling it all for us so that we can read it.
Thank you. They're amazing. Just so you guys know that the neighborhood association there, they actually take trips together. They fundraise, and like 20 of them go on cruises together and stuff. So it's a really fun, cool group to work with.
Well, and the way the streets were named with such intentionality, it's just really cool place.
Yeah, the streets in that area are named after historically Black colleges in this country. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, Karen. Any public comments or on non-agenda items? Mr. Price.
Just checking to see, I've not heard any updates on when we're supposed to be meeting as it relates to our subdivision standards, and was just wondering if I could get an update. Thank you.
Staff is having a meeting with Chairman Collier, as soon as he feels better, I guess, and our acting public works director, and we're going to go through what are the most recent comments we received from the home builders and others, try to see if there's anything that we can resolve easily. But after sort of doing that, we're going to decide if we want to go forward in the short term, or do we want to take a different tact. We don't need to have another meeting where we bring everybody together and we don't have a lot of agreement. And so we're going to try to see if there's something we can do on our end. And if that's not possible, then my intention is to try to table it for as long as possible until we get our other planning and zoning work done. We just don't have months to go over that. We've spent 5 or 6 months, at least among some of our staff, like trying to advance this. I do feel like we need, this was just one change to the subdivision regs. I do feel like we need probably a host of other changes, and I'm just kind of looking for the right approach that will help the city and the county too update our subdivision regs in the next year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought there was supposed to be a dialogue between the community as it relates to the engineering community and staff. And I'm not quite hearing that maybe now.
Well, I think it's because I don't know that staff has a good understanding of what we first think. You know, that we change from the position they're in. I think what as we said at our last meeting, Public Works said they support everything that's in the subdivision regs draft as today, and obviously industry folks don't. And so before we sort of sat down and had another discussion, we wanted to go through it and see if there's any easy wins. I think there's things that myself that I would argue could be changed. And so we want to have that meeting. But I mean, if we're not going to be able to resolve the things on the Public Works side, then I don't know what benefit it does to go sit down with the home builders. If we can't do it within our own office.
Well, can I only offer to maybe, since it's a RPA City of Chattanooga led subdivision I mean, it'll come in front of this body, but we're not doing it as a body. So could I just maybe ask RPA that you're going to have an internal meeting to figure out what the next steps are relative to things that can be agreed upon easily, and can you just get back with Absolutely. Mr. Price or the Home Builders Association?
I want to be clear, RPA is just facilitating.
Yes. Okay.
I mean,
okay. So
again,
he's your contact.
Right.
Thank you. We're trying to get resolution and lots of things we want to see move forward.
Well, you're the middleman. Sorry,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh yeah, but I mean, if we can't get our own staff to kind of, then I don't know that I don't want to go waste all their time.
Mr. Chairman, can staff add one thing to that? You know, our meeting about 2 weeks ago, whenever that was, and I think I've let Mr. Price know. A lot of discussion was centered on the standard drawings. Those have been added to CDOT's or Department of Public Works' website. We also have a link on our website. If you go to the subdivision section, you can click that link and it'll take you to those. I think Public Works is calling those a Series 200. It's all the street diagrams that were discussed here about a month ago. Those have been adopted. They have been placed on the website.
Thank you, Brian. Mr. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess one quick comment on the process. So I agree, y'all are in an unenviable situation having to be kind of the middleman there. I know that's not a fun place to be. I would like to encourage, and I think that was the goal of how we ended that last meeting, was that there be dialogue and discussion between the parties. And I'm thinking if we could get the Public Works and some of the industry people in the same room having dialogue, it may kind of help get y'all out of the middle of that some too. So I would like to see, I guess what I'd like to emphasize is that I would like to see that dialogue happen before this comes back to this body.
And I think the Planning Commission's in the middle of it too. I mean, I'm sure you all have opinions on some of the standards. But we had a number of public meetings and made some progress maybe, but I agree. I mean, it's just frustrating right now. So just trying to find the right path forward.
Comments, questions? Okay. Motion on approval of the minutes. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Have a motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.